Hello and welcome to MBTV. In this edition of MB Leadership Dialogues, I have with me three of the most prominent real estate icons and industry leaders. Firstly, we have with us Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, co-founder and managing director of the Hiranandani Group, who is also the vice chairman of NAREDCO. Secondly, we have with us Mr. Boman Irani, who is the chairman and managing director of Rustomjee Group and is also the president of CREDAI National. And finally, we have with us Mr. Sanjay, who is the MD and CEO of Tata Realty and Tata Housing. Welcome, gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to engage with all of you in our MB Leadership Dialogues. We all know that post-COVID-19 in the last year, the Indian real estate sector showed not only signs of recovery, but also of high growth all around as demand increased in housing, commercial office spaces, retail, industrial, plots, and even alternate asset classes such as co-living, co-working, data centers, etc. However, this year there have been signs of economic weakness at a global level due to geopolitical conditions which have created high inflation, increased interest rates, caused job losses in the IT and BPO sectors, and affected global capital flows. Against this backdrop, we would like to invite you to share your perspectives on how the Indian economy has been impacted and how this has further affected the Indian real estate sectors.
My personal view is when it comes to capital, so India is impacted because private equity, whether it's sovereign or real estate funds and certain platforms who are looking at India and investing on a very large scale, they were impacted back home in US and European markets. And I would say there was a pause for about 12 months, given the state of US economy and the rising interest rates and their challenges, particularly on the office segment, because still return to office in the so-called corporate space somewhat was impacted and still impacted. However, when it comes to consumption, when it comes to demand, the Indian markets have shown far more resilience and an uptake in comparison to most markets. So let's start with office. We've seen even during 2021, when the COVID-19 was still prevalent, we saw 25 million square feet net absorption in office, repeated in 21. And in 22, we crossed 50 million square feet of office absorption. So almost close enough to 2019 numbers of office absorption, despite the situation and hangover of US economy. So this is fundamentally the key difference. On the other side, residential has been consistently maintaining the uptake. We have crossed over 6 lakh unit last year. And I think this year, the same momentum will continue. And in fact, the recent credit policy by RBI indicates there is stability around inflation. So one would like to see reduction in inflation and therefore interest rates so that the momentum the residential has does not get derailed. I would say the investors who were shying away from the real estate sector, they have come back to residential, so that's a great sign. When you look at all the other segments, so warehousing, logistics, nearly 30 million square feet, data centers, nearly 1,500 megawatt of data centers commitments in the country, given the government policy. And then if you look at co-working space, who would have thought when India had only one business center operator called Regus about 20 years ago with a portfolio of 2 million square feet over 2 decades, the industry today has over 50 million square feet of co-work space. So that's a staggering growth. So it's very rare that you see all the graphs on the chart pointing upwards for India. But yes, should the Fed increases rates, should the inflation go out, should the war in Europe continue, should the cost of materials, building materials, and our interest rates go up, then yes, it can dampen the spirit, in my opinion. But so far, absolutely insulated, so as long as we keep the consumption and the economy going.
So, first of all, I must say very well encapsulated by you, Sanjay. You put in all the numbers very, very precisely. I'll just give you the industry overview in terms of the markets across India. So, what we are receiving information from the tier 2, tier 3 towns, the residential segment is very, very strong out there. People are investing in bigger and better homes. And even the affordable housing, Sanjay, which you mentioned is such an important part, is really seeing a huge surge. All thanks to the government on that account with the kind of schemes that they've come out with. Yes, we would all be very, very happy if the interest rates were reduced now that inflation is under control. RBI has given two very good signals, did not increase the repo rate twice. It's important that we get for the benefit of our home purchasers and just improve the mood to bring or to bring a downward trend in the interest rates as such. The Mumbai market and so also Gurgaon, and I know about Bangalore, have been extremely strong. Bangalore is still seeing very good absorption on both commercial as well as residential developments. Yes, these new age sectors of data centers, etc. Niranjan will be able to throw more light, but are doing extremely well. There are all kind of international players already over here tying up left, right, and center to build the data centers with Indian developers. And this will give a big boost to at least the consumption of real estate in these areas. Rentals right now continue to stay good in spite of the global pressures. Siddhart, and I can tell you that Mumbai, with some of the marquee developments that are happening on the commercial side, are seeing actually a growth in the realization of the developers what they would have done more than a year and a half back. So rentals are going up in certain pockets of the country. I would say largely Mumbai again, because of the ongoing redevelopments that are taking place. We're also seeing rentals go up, Sanjay, on the residential prices.
Yes.
In most of these areas where the development is going on. So Bandra, for one, is a market where I see residential rents almost up 30% than they were last year, and that itself was about 10% higher than the year before. So overall, if inflation, if your interest rates do come down, I see a boom coming in again for a short period of time. The sentiment improvement will help people to go out there and make bets and buy homes. But overall, one thing that COVID has done is put into the minds of most of us that residential or homes that they buy should be of a particular spec and value. And they're putting their money out there. And like Sanjay mentioned, investors are also coming back into this market because they see an upside coming in.
Also, just to go back on office, SEZs, we have roughly about 175 million square feet in the country. And it had very high vacancy because of sunset clause. And the Ministry of Commerce decision to make these special economic zone domestic tariff friendly, which means companies with domestic tariff can operate and have unit by unit denotification or floor by floor unit denotification, will make sure that the absorption in SEZ will also go up. So in a way, nearly 30 million square feet of supply will come in the market, which if you look at the top listed REITs, for example, they've been a bit under the weather, or that their occupancies are going up quarter on quarter, and that's how it will go. This particular change by Ministry of Commerce will bring further boost to the commercial sector, in my opinion.
Thank you for sharing those wonderful insights. But if the Indian real estate sector is not going to get affected by the current global economic conditions, what further changes or trends can we expect, and how will the sector evolve further?
Niranjan, please go, and then I have a few points.
The number of developers, let's say even in the MMR region, about 5 years ago, was in the region of about 20,000 numbers. That has fallen down to 12,000. So what we do see is there's a huge consolidation taking place in the marketplace that is absolutely evident in terms of what the market is. So with the growth in the market, which is there, which has been expounded already, I would say that you are going to see more and more consolidation in the next couple of years, which was unheard of earlier. And in fact, earlier, I would say there were more and more developers added to the situation. Of course, I think the responsibility is partly on RERA, because the kind of capital requirements that are there, as well as for the purposes of development, this is definitely taking place in a different sort of way. Second, I want to flag off is the new thing which SEBI has brought about, which is the fractional ownership of homes. This is something very new and similar to what has happened in the case of the REITs, which is there. There is a possible now for us as developers to create fractional ownership in the homes that are there. So buildings could be taken up, those could be kept on rental for the next 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and maybe sold after 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, so that the appreciation in terms of properties could also take place. So it's a new concept which SEBI has now floated, and I'm sure CREDAI and NAREDCO will both take it up with right earnest in order to see that this fructifies on it. And I think it's a new way to go in terms of investments that will take place for people to be able to invest not only in the REIT sector or the InvIT sector, but also in order to get into fractional ownership of homes. We had thought about it with SEBI about 22 years ago.
Yes.
At that point of time, it was rejected by SEBI. They called it by a different name, but it was the same concept. But now they have brought it into fore. So I think it's a very healthy thing that will take place. This will also enable us to work in dimensions which we have never done before. So corporate companies and others could work on the residential line with a leasing concept and an availability of investors who could take it over in terms of fractional ownership. I think this is a new thing to do. Yeah. The mention which Boman had just mentioned about data centers, I think is also going to do consolidation. Today, if you look at data in India, we have already crossed the United States in terms of data generation that we do. So the amount of data is going to be huge and will continue to do. But we haven't still seen the data localization bill. So depending on how the bill will ultimately read, the requirement of data will again have to be centered depending on what the bill is. Because there are fluctuation information as to whether it's going to be in this form or that form or what is going to be. The next important point that I see in terms of development in the next 5 years is infrastructure development. If you look at the Mumbai region alone, I'm purposely talking about one region because we have more data on it. The MMR region, for example, we are going to add 330 kilometers of metro in the next 3 years. 300. We had 190 kilometers in the last 70 years, Western Railway, Central Railway, and Harbour Line. And we are adding 330 kilometers. And also we are adding the Panvel Karchat route, which will be a part of the railway suburban lines that which will take place. So if you see different states are doing the freeways and the expressway, a lot of connectivity to all the states is taking place. The Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, the bullet train, and other things. What I see definitely is the COVID effect. The COVID effect, there was a lot of question as to people would buy their homes or only would rent it. I think the difference is now stark and clear. People will buy their homes. It is definitely happening. And earlier, in between, the younger people said, we don't need to buy a home. But after this situation has taken place of the COVID story, I see a huge number of young people who are not buying. We just launched a Panvel segment. And surprisingly, the young people would buy one bedroom. This time, they don't want to buy one bedroom in Panvel. They want to buy 2 and 3 bedrooms in Panvel. I mean, subject to budget, of course. So we could find a huge armory of change, which surprised me because I thought Panvel would have an equal demand for 1 bedroom. And the changes are taking place. So what is it that we see? We see the effect of what the states are doing. We see the effects of what is happening in terms of development by corporates, which are doing a fantastic job over here. The credibility of leadership, which is there, Boman now taking up the presidentship of CREDAI, and the effect of all this is there.
What do the central and or the state governments need to do to further support the growth of the real estate sector?
What we need to do more is to convince government that they need to have a more support to these states. The Maharashtra government did it in stamp duty and development charges. I think if you want to go GDP growth from 7% to 10% plus, you will have to give this benefit. It's not a favor that you're going to do. More people will get houses, they will pay more taxes, there will be more effective things to that. So I think we need to convince the government that you need to do that. You can't make states more expensive. Today, if you benchmark it, our cost in terms of the approval cost, in terms of development charges and others is so high. It is too high. And we're not able to convince government that it is needed for the purpose. They say, oh, builders will develop, will benefit. It's nonsense. With the kind of quantity that is there, they need to bring down the prices. You can't make it unaffordable in terms of housing. So I think we as real estate developers and institutions that we do need to work very hard in this subject for the sake of the people and for the sake of the states. And today, remember, there is a huge competition in states which are taking place, whether it is Karnataka, whether it is Tamil Nadu, whether it is UP. A huge amount of boost in terms of development is taking place in UP. And you're going to see surprising results in the next couple of years. You're going to be far ahead in industrialization than any other state in India. So it's really working very hard in terms of doing it. So we need to actually market ourselves in terms of as an industry to look after that roti, kapda, makan. Makan's needs should be fulfilled. And we as developers owe a duty to the people to do so.
I'll just add. Go on, Sanjay.
Very quickly, such an important point Sir made in terms of making this sector contribute more. If you look at how much importance the government has given in last few months, or rather 2 years, given the global geopolitical situation with China, and there is a manufacturing shift that is taking place to India. Now, that means many non-urban areas, given the nature of manufacturing is beyond the tier 1, tier 2 cities, can actually create and be more inclusive in terms of growth of this country. Now, if these billions of dollars which come from new global corporates who are setting up manufacturing, I can bet if I was to put all the data together of the investment made by the real estate development company across the segments of real estate, it'll be at least 3 to 4 times more, maybe even 10 times more. So imagine the impact that the government can create through ease of doing business, through making investment in real estate more attractive and facilitating faster development. It can just change the game. I mean, you can easily add 1 or 2% of the GDP into the economy. So let's create that environment is what I would say, given the clue from what Sir just mentioned, that we can do a lot more. So, that's what I very strongly believe.
So, sorry to interrupt. After a long statement, I want to make one more statement. If India, this is important, Mr. Goel, if India is to grow double digit, the only way you can go double digit is to see infrastructure and housing is given a further boost. India is satisfied with 7%. Okay, I'm not satisfied with 7%. If I have to go increase the per capita GDP of the country, I have to go up. So I want to tell Magicbricks that if India is to grow double digit, the only way you can do it is to give a double boost to housing and further boost to infrastructure. I know we are doing a lot, but it's still not enough. We still have to do much more because we are still lagging behind in lots of things that we need to do in infrastructure. For example, sewage water in Mumbai, we are talking about treated it. Why can't we recycle it and use it for industry and development and downstream and all that stuff? So lots of things to be done, but you need to create more infrastructure and you need to create housing. India can become a double-digit growth on the boost of housing. China only became double-digit growth because they did a boost in infrastructure and housing. Of course, manufacturing was also there. But if it was double-digit, it was because of infrastructure and housing.
So I'll just add to what.
Sorry.
No, absolutely, Niranjan, you hit the nail on the head. And Sanjay, you mentioned that we were just having a conversation with some of these Americans who had come down a few weeks back, and Niranjan, you'll be surprised. They were saying it's no secret. They were saying that the Chinese, I mean, if any imports from China are taking place right now, they're paying very heavy tariffs, whereas they're looking at India because the tariffs from India are only 5%. Can you imagine the huge upside that is possible that we have with all industries coming in over here to set up base? That'll give more jobs to the people. That'll bring more, expendable income to the hands of most of the people. And more importantly, that will create the need for better housing. The roti kapda makan, which you mentioned, the roti is already doing extremely well, if I may say that, about most of the places. The kapda, we can see the results of most of these listed companies. It is the makan that will actually take us now and give us that fillip that is required by the country. And I agree totally with Niranjan Bhai. It's only and only real estate that will give you the double-digit growth. And I think, Sanjay, you kind of put all the numbers together. We have a lot more we can do. And it's only a plea time and again to the government. What really happens is, Niranjan Bhai, you put it very well, that the moment things start improving, the government thinks, oh, the developers are making too much money, and they kind of clam up. Really, It isn't about the developers. It is about the consumer. It is about your GDP. It is about the growth this nation can have by the contribution of developers and the development fraternity to, to basically provide more housing, more commercial, more infrastructure to India.
In fact, very recently we saw two global private equity firms invest in alternate spaces. One is the life sciences, space. So some private equity capital is now seeking investment in those spaces as well. There's some investment in Hyderabad, which took place in last 1 year. On the other side, we saw a rise in senior living. We also seen student housing scaling up. So I think all of these alternates are adding to an already strong, vibrant economy and consumption story. If the government gives right support, so when it comes to manufacturing, Siddhart, land and labor reforms, only then you can set up large manufacturing hubs, and the ease of doing business in terms of single window, and then the adequate infrastructure, whether it's port, airport, or transport, they will thrive. So I think it's really, the opportunity is so huge that we should be discussing how to unleash this opportunity and make it work in the coming days.
But, I'll give the government this credit. They are all interested in interaction with us as a body, if you know that. Then a few weeks back, our housing minister had a meeting called for. Mr. Amitabh Kant has been put in, direct charge of how to complete all the held up or stuck projects. They are taking great interest. I just wish that this interest continue. I just wish that they realize that they've got to go all guns blazing. And I just wish they continue listening to the industry, because, in your growth, in the nation's growth, we as a community are the ones, or a fraternity are the ones who will add tremendous value. First of all, a big thank you to the government, and then a plea that please make our lives a lot simpler. We'll be able to add a lot more contribution.
Mr. Goel, what I would like Magicbricks to do is to work out a panel which decides that to make a recommendation to the Government of India and to RBI and the ministries as to how we can bring double-digit growth to India in the next few years. I mean, we can involve CII, we can involve FICCI, we can involve ASSOCHAM. Of course, CREDAI and NAREDCO will be there. It's not an issue, but we need to get people who are convinced that we can do it, and then make a roadmap as to how we should really go for it. Once we have a roadmap and then recommend to the government, this is in addition to what you are doing. You need to do it. We can go to RBI governor, speak to him. We can go to the finance ministry, the prime minister's office, Amitabh Kant, of course, and people like him to be able to do. But my idea is that, we are too happy with 7% growth. And I'm grossly unhappy with 7% because we have so much more to achieve. I'll give you one example which I want to achieve. Mumbai, which is the richest city in India, and we are talking so much about it, 50% population still lives in poverty. Just solve this problem, your GDP of India will grow by 1% only by solving the slum problem of Mumbai. Only one problem. I mean, what's the big deal? The whole country's GDP I can grow by 1%. If I was taken a government role and handled all the slums of Mumbai, half the land would become free and we would market it all over the world. And the GDP would grow by 2.5% only because of slums of Mumbai. We have so much more to go about and solve problems to do. So Magicbricks should take up some of these ideas and take it forward. And of course, Sanjay's got all the statistics, and Boman is now the leadership in CREDAI also. So between us, we should be able to, take our media to help us to do that.
What about our Indian developers? What do they need to do to ensure that the sector can really grow and develop to meet global standards?
If you don't mind, I'll just go with what all points I have. I'll tell you, the one thing that all of us have been screaming from, on the top of our lungs is that we all got to work towards sustainable and green development. Let us all just wake up today before the government starts coming down harder and harder on us. We as an industry need to take responsibility. And, Sanjay, you, Niranjan bhai, you, our credible developers are all doing this. We should actually internally also mandate to all our members to move towards green construction. It's a real challenge. We need to just wake up and we need to get going. Niranjan bhai, you mentioned RERA. RERA has been such a boon to us. Just imagine if we had brought this amongst ourselves to all our members, I don't know, 10 years back. The size of our industry has really grown because of that. That's one. Two is, let us all be open to technology. Today, the way we did things about 5 years back and today, there's a sea change. And every one of us knows that we've been using more and more technology in over here. Let us spread the good word. Let us get these, changes done down to the least common denominator. Let us take it to every kind of development. The world is changing. You mentioned, Sanjay, about co-working spaces. I think that is the future, right? Co-working spaces are the future. Flexible working environments are the future. But also mixed developments are the future. We need to allow our DCR to kind of take into consideration that a building should not be only all commercial or only all residential. There should be more and more of mixed development allowed. I know some years back there was this discussion when BKC was being developed, that we keep it only commercial. Then they realized the mistake that happened at Nariman Point, and they said, it's better to kind of mix it up. So that's another thing. One very important point. Let us all build as if we are building for ourselves, not to serve a customer. So just because it's affordable, it doesn't mean it has to be substandard, it has to be ugly. Let us all put creativity into it. Only if we have more and more right-minded and right thinking and long-term value-creating developers, we will have a greater growth in our industry. We need to spread this message amongst our developers. We all need to understand that India is going to be a beneficiary of the entire China situation. This is not only going to come from the US, it's going to come from around the globe. We have, in what Niranjan bhai keeps coining as the demographic dividend, we have a strong opportunity. We've got talent out here. Let us go ahead and be ready for, e-commerce flooding us, every other kind of industry coming in over here, manufacturing coming in over here, and let us all prepare for it. Let us not shake our confidence in this economy just because of small downturns that come. Let us have a long-term perspective. And very, very important, this, Niranjan bhai, I think we need to get together, all of us as an industry, affordable housing, which is been the clarion call of our Honorable Prime Minister, has got to be taken up on a more, I know it's difficult, right? I'm saying that it is one of the most difficult subjects that we've dealt with, but it is something, let us just put our heads together and, literally lock ourselves into a room and not get out till we find a way. And I'm not saying only lock ourselves, but include the including the powers that be, including our bureaucrats in, bring international minds in over here and let them speak out. I'm sure with the kind of open ears and open hearts that they are listening to us, with open minds that they're listening to us with, we will be able to crack this code. Real estate has been tough around the world as a business, even for the government, but it is moving leaps and bounds ahead for us in India, and we're catching up to the rest of the world. And if we just become number one for everything else, there is, like Niranjan Bhai said, and like Sanjay said, the opportunity is too huge. Let us not lose it at this moment in time.
Often we ignore the responsibilities and the contributions of one segment of the real estate sector, which is basically the brokers, agents, or real estate consultants. What do they need to do to ensure that they also support the growth of the industry?
You see, one of the biggest challenge for the sector has been the transparency, perception, the regulation. All that has fallen in place. The developers are far more compliant, regulated, and they adhere to every possible condition. We need to make sure that the consultants play an important role by being fair, by adopting ethical practices, by making sure they do a proper research. Thanks to various state governments, now they have to at least have some basic qualification and a license to be able to practice consulting, which is a good initiative. But more importantly, given the size and scale of this sector, some of these small consulting firms or individuals can actually become very large entities if they start following discipline in a manner which the industry expects them to, and help that grow confidence of the buyer in the real estate. Because I think when the governance and compliance is impacted, then the perception of the real estate sector suffers a lot. So I think that is one key. Developers have got it. Now the consultants need to get it. And to Boman's point on sustainability, it will be a very strong message to all the vendors that now that you're setting up your manufacturing and metals and materials environment, we as developers will give a premium to a vendor who provides us green or zero carbon footprint product, because that is what our customers are increasingly looking for, whether it's commercial space or increasingly even in the residential space. And very soon, Boman is right, very soon the government will come out with punitive measures if you are not following those, given the impact that our cities are facing when it comes to environment. So I think these are directionally extremely important steps and takeaways.
Thank you. Just one last bit that we wanted is for the end users, the buyers, if there is any kind of advice that you have for them, that what should they be looking at?
India has no social security to a person who gets old. If you don't have a house, you're on the road. At that point of time, whether you can afford a house, residential rental, at that point of time, it's a question mark, which I think people are not able to answer. Today, the inflation may be under control. Tomorrow, it may not be under control. One residential house benefit, especially in view of the income tax benefits that are available, the low rates of interest which there, investment into a residential house is a must. It is a necessity. It is an important aspect of life in India. And if somebody is advising someone not to buy a house, that is misguiding the people of India. I think we need to guide them, to tell them that it is important to do so, not only for the interest rate, not only for the tax rate, but for your social security. Please do invest into your one home. You may give it out on rent, stay in a in a rented house. That's not important. You may buy in your hometown and stay in Mumbai. That's a different story, whatever. But do not buy a house. You must buy one residential house in order to have a chat, a roti, kapda, makan, as we talk.
Sanjay, you want to go?
Oh, yeah. I feel that the residential yields, which have often been a debate amongst investors, have become far more attractive, Siddhart. So look at commercial used to be 10.5, 11. I've even done deals with 14% return about 25 years ago. But the return on commercial is now down to 7. In retail market, maybe 5 and 6. And it is my belief that the residential yields will also move away from 2 to 3 to 4, if not 5 and 6. And given the blended capital appreciation and yield of residential, it may actually become as attractive as commercial. In my opinion, it already is. And you never know that in the not so distant future, you'll have rental housing REITs becoming a game in the market. So I genuinely agree with Sir that the residential market is going to play a very important role, and so will it in the investment space as well.
I could not have said it better than what Niranjan and Sanjay have put it. I'll just add my 1 or 2 points to it. A is, in real estate, be smart. Don't try to get super smart, because when you're trying to extract that last drop out there, you're usually missing more opportunities than you're getting. So if your heart is set on a home, I mean, please, by all means, don't try to negotiate it down to something where you'll finally not get it. Second, I really have a plea for all my home purchasers. Please put your money to work in a way that good developments get rewarded. Where green developments are being spoken about so much, it will only really take off when you start putting your money behind those green developments, right? You start rewarding people for doing the right thing, and people will do more of the right thing, which is good for you in the long run, for your children, for your future generations. And hey, I love my children. I am sure each and every one of us love your own children more than yourselves in most cases. So please, in that regard, reward good development, reward good developers. And if your heart is set on a home, please do not try and squeeze out every last bit, because you're not going to get it. And then there's going to be regret and remorse setting in. And more often than not, when you make a bad choice for a few bucks, you're left holding some waste in your hand for a very long period of time, and it really creates a bad taste for you. So good luck with that. I agree with Niranjan bhai. It really doesn't matter what the interest rates are, but there is no social security. The least that you would want for yourself is that safe space called a home for you when you're older and not as strong as you think you can be. So guys, go ahead, make that call today. Everyone in this business has seen that a call made today, no matter how expensive it seems, is much better than a call which we wait for. So go ahead. Good luck.
Thank you very much for the valuable insights that you have shared with us today. I'm sure that our viewers will find a lot of nuggets of wisdom and knowledge that they can cull from these discussions today.
So thank you, Siddhart. Thank you, Magicbricks.
Thank you, Siddhart,
for having this round table, and I'm going to encourage you to do more of these in the future. We're very happy to come over here and express our views, and we're thankful to you for carrying it out to all the audiences that you have. Thank you.
Thank you.